and welcome to Talking Games match preview. West Ham United against Brentford back at the London Stadium, the final game of 2022 for both teams. And what a year it's been for both teams as well, for different reasons. Gonzo, can I get your thoughts on Brentford, please?
Yeah, exceptionally well-run club. Their manager, Frank, has just signed I say their manager, Frank. It's not just a geezer called Frank. Is it Thomas Frank or Franks?
Thomas Frank.
Thomas Frank. He's just signed a new deal, which should be really good news for them. For the structure from the bottom up is amazing. Recruitment. They've got a new stadium. I'm struggling to think of a stadium build that was that well timed. Basically, that it was like the culmination, the cherry on top of their project, which was we'll sort out the youth system. Well, actually, funny enough, they didn't run a youth system for a little bit. They were literally just cherry picking players, but we'll get this Moneyball recruitment system going. We'll get some good coaches in. We'll get the director of football. We'll have a real vision, and then we'll get to a point where we'll buy and sell and generate some income. And then at that point, we'll start to bring some money, and then we'll build a stadium, and then we'll get into the Premier League. I mean, just like all happened exactly. Who on earth plans like that? I can't even plan to do. Well, yeah, I can't even plan to do the weekly shop, quite frankly. But to, at exactly the right time, honestly, they even managed to finish bits of the stadium off. They even the pandemic helped them out because they managed to finish the stadium off with no fans in there. So yeah, I think they're a really, really well run club, mate.
Yeah, it's hard not to admire them, isn't it? Like you said, from top to bottom, the way they've stuck to their guns as well. When they came up with the whole Moneyball idea, it was sort of frowned upon, and obviously it goes against sort of, I guess, old-fashioned football, you want to call it that. It was like, well, hang on a minute, you can't do that. That's not how football's done. And our assistant, Mark Warburton, had a bit of an issue with it as well. Hang on, I want to buy my... No, you can't buy your players. You've got to use the database. You get given the players. Hang on, I don't like that kind of thing. So they've had that, and I quite like the fact that they've stuck to it, and I quite like the fact that it's worked as well. From somebody that likes the data on football, it gives me proof that data can sometimes be reliable, but I don't think it's a be-all and end-all. I think this is where Brentford have got the balance right, and this is where I think Thomas Frank's a really good manager for them. He's a manager that's able to work under their structure, but also impose his own print on the team as well. He's the manager, despite the fact that he perhaps doesn't have the control that other managers do at their clubs, such as David Moyes, for example. And I think what they've done is admirable. And like you said, the way they've done it, the way they've gone through the planning, everything's worked out. I think he's done remarkably well to get them promoted and then to finish 13th. With like the smallest budget in the league. I think when they finished 13th in this season, I think they've now got the second smallest. So they've gone up a place. They've now got the 19th smallest budget in the Premier League. But even at this point, I'd imagine Brentford fans are pretty happy with what they're seeing, sitting 10th in the league. And they're not that far away from the bottom three. They're only a bad run away from it. But they're looking comfortable at this point as well. And the Thomas Frank contract we'll talk about in a second, but even like getting the naming rights for their stadium now, the G-Tech Community Stadium or whatever it's going to be called, even that is just well planned. You look at our club, 6 years we've been in there now. We don't have a naming right for the stadium now. The club's not in control of it. It's the London Stadium itself, but they've not found anyone to come along and buy the naming rights yet. Brentford have got it done just like that. Sorted money into the club, pays for the stadium, happy days. But like you said, Christmas Eve, I mean, talk about an early Christmas present for Brentford fans. The club announced Thomas Frank has signed a new 5-year deal. I mean, that's a statement, I think, from the club and from the manager as well.
Yeah, and why not? Why not? It's a secure job. There's stability there. You talk about them, being 10th, but that's still mathematically, because the way the league is, nothing to do with them particularly. Still mathematically close to the bottom of the league. But you know what? That being said, that even with that, there's still stability there. There's real stability there. You get the impression, even if they did go down, he would retain his job. And I don't doubt there's many people who think they will go down because they got goals, they got a real way, a proper way of playing. Well, I say a proper way of playing, I don't particularly like it, but they've got a real identity way of playing. And you've got to have that. You've got to have that, and you've got to stick to your guns. And if you can score goals and you can defend and you can battle, and then you've got your tactics, and then why not? Absolutely. I think it's a really, really good club for him. I've got to be honest, I wasn't overly thrilled when I heard us being linked with him. I don't like that link at all. But for Brentford and for where they are and for what they do, I do think it's really good. I think he's it's just playing. You just can't fault them. I can't think of too many clubs that are better run than Brentford. I really can't. They honestly, they make us look like amateurs. They really do.
Yeah, them and Brighton are sort of
Yeah.
the trendsetters, aren't they? The ones that you look at and think, "Oh, they're doing something right over there." Yeah, and just for the interest of fairness, Brentford are also only 5 points behind Liverpool. So at this point in the season, mathematically, they're closer to Liverpool than they are 18th in the league, which is tremendous. I think it's a huge statement from the club, which is saying this is our guy for the next 5 years. I think it's also one from Thomas Frank, because whenever a Premier League job arises this season, whether it be Aston Villa or Wolves or whatever, he's very quickly linked to him. He's very, very quickly. Thomas Frank's topped the list. We've had it, we haven't even got a vacancy. Oh, Thomas Frank, somebody that West Ham are interested in. I imagine now Brentford have just secured themselves a huge compensation payout should anybody want to poach Thomas Frank. But I think it's nice to see the manager committing to the club as well, because you could argue the club took a bit of a punt on him. He's got him into the Premier League, and now his stock's risen. And it's like, well, actually, I'm going to repay my faith. I'm going to repay the loyalty that you showed me, and I'm going to stick around at Brentford and keep trying to build something, become.
But they'll already know who his replacement is.
Yeah. That's why they give him a 5 year. We don't want him here. Have a 5 year contract. I think it's huge.
Sure.
I think it's huge, and I think it's just really refreshing to see. Actually, worst case scenario for them, they lose Thomas Frank to another club, they're going to get a huge payout for it, and it gives him a bit of security as well. And if in the unlikely event they do get relegated this season, you'd imagine they're going to stick by him as well and say, actually, you've got another season or whatever to get us back up, because that's something he did do. He got them up without the parachute payments. You just have to look at most of the teams that get promoted these days from Championship have come down in the past 2 or 3 seasons from the Premier League, and they've got that money there that they're using to get back in. Brentford didn't have that. They didn't have that parachute payment just to boost their transfer. They had to be clever, and they were clever. And like some Neil Mopey and Saeed Benrahma coming in for low fees and going out the door for big
Watkins
fees
as well. Watkins, imagine how good they'd be with Watkins up front with Toney as well. I mean, they really do unearth some great players.
Do you think they'll be all right? They're obviously comfortable, but they've also got this Ivan Toney sort of what's going to happen with Ivan Toney lingering over.
He likes money ball as well, doesn't he?
I wonder if he was using his owner's site for getting the one up on the bookies.
I don't know. I wonder if he was even using his own name. He used a false name.
I don't know.
Enter username O Watkins.
Yeah. Money on Aston Villa to lose. There we go. Have a bit of that all in. But do you think they'll be all right this season? Because I think this is a difficult thing for Brentford to navigate. And obviously, they know a lot more than what the Joe public know at this point. They'll know how serious the allegations regarding Ivan Toney are. If he's bet on any Brentford game, that's going to increase the ban, if you like. Whereas if it's an ACA every weekend, it doesn't involve Brentford, I'd imagine the punishment will be lesser. And it's it's been 3 years since he did the last one that we're aware of. But it causes them a bit of a problem, because they're going into the January transfer window and they don't know if they need to replace Ivan Toney or not. It's a case of we might not have him for the rest of the season, but we might also have him for the rest of the season. And I think it's a difficult one, because you wouldn't want to go the rest of the season. And I like Mbeumo, and I think Wissa's actually quite good as well, but you wouldn't want to rely on them to score you the goals to keep you up.
No, he might. Mbeumo might fall over, to be perfectly honest with you, so you don't know. I'm just looking at Ivan Toney.
That was a bad dive, weren't it?
It was terrible. I just think Ivan Toney there. Brentford to keep the ball in play for less than 40 minutes. 20 quid. There you go. Oh, I went. I would have thought it. It was a terrible dive. It was a terrible, terrible dive. I feel they were let down. I've got to say this. I know it's not. I even thought about saying it. I thought, oh no, don't say that, but I'm going to say it anyway. I thought they were a bit let down by Ericsson last season. I don't think anyone wanted to touch him with barge pole because of his heart condition. And it's a lovely story. I'm pleased to see him back. And I think you have to be, and everyone's got to be, right. But I think it was Inter Milan, and because of the Italian rules, they couldn't play him because they've just got stricter cardio rules than us in the Premier League, which is again a good thing. I wouldn't criticise Italy for that. They don't want people dying on the football pitch, so their rules are strict, And basically, he is not healthy enough to play football in Serie A. But we're not as strict and over here. But none of the big clubs really wanted to touch him. Nobody did. And they brought him in. And don't get me wrong, I think he was good for Brentford. I think he may even have helped keep him up because I think they were starting to falter at the halfway point last season. But I think they showed him immense loyalty and they had a good team anyway. But he found Frank found him a place in the team, and I thought he was brilliant. Unplayable against us actually when we played him. I feel that's got to be a little dent in the club. So fair play to them for doing that. But what it does show, Geo, is they've got one eye on what's going on in the transfer market. It may not even be money that they have to spend. They may well be looking at 2 or 3 things that they can do. Maybe if Ivan Toney does have a 10-game ban or whatever the case may be, I believe there is an additional charge that's been added to it. I might have that wrong in the last day.
Yeah, it went from 232 to 262. They discovered 30 more, but
okay.
So I think that's now part of the charge he's facing.
Sure, okay. Well, in which case, I'm pretty sure they will have somebody that they'll know that they can bring in, and it's a hell of a allure. You often look at West Ham and think, oh, it's hard to bring somebody in. Actually, I don't think it's hard to bring people into the Premier League because players want to play in the Premier League. And, whether it's a loan or whether it's something else, or whatever, a little, a shorter contract, 2-year contract or whatever, I'm sure they'll be able to do something.
Yeah, I think they'll be fine as well, regardless of the Toney thing. I think at West Ham, obviously, we're looking now thinking there's the 3 worst teams in us in the league. And even in regards to us, I think at the moment, yes, but very quickly we could find the answer no. But I think Brentford will always have the answer is yes. I think they will be looking at West Ham as well as Southampton and Bournemouth and Forest going, they're worse than us this season. We'll be okay. But they do need to replace Toney should he get a ban. But the problem is, I think with the Toney thing, it might not reach a conclusion until after the window is shut. That's the problem. So I think they could do this hearing, getting a bit of a hurry on. He's got until the 4th of January to respond, but he can contest the charges individually as well, which will add time to it. But
can he? He can contest each one of the 260 odd charges. Oh my word!
So obviously he's not going to, is he? He's hardly going to say, "Well, I accept them 230, but the other, excuse me, sir, I'm not happy about those other 30." Can I argue that? Yeah, we'll knock 1 day off your ban. Then I've been sorry.
Well, he might just challenge them one at a time, which would he could tie that up into in years, couldn't you?
Okay, yeah, I'd imagine it could last a while, but I was reading about it.
A good legal representative would probably do that.
Well, Brentford, this has been going on for 7 months now. The FA have been investigating him for months, so Brentford don't know exactly what the charges are and the likelihood of a ban and how long that ban's going to be. But I think the FA have said you can't use previous examples as almost case studies for this. So the Joey Barton thing, which, to be fair, was like 1,200 charges, you can't use that as an example. You can't use Kieran Trippier's one or Daniel Sturridge's one. They've been banned for betting in football as well. Can't use them as sort of a guide, if you want, as a unique case. So anyway, we shall wait and see. Last question on Brentford, as always, please. Can I get some players here, Mayor?
Yeah, I like Ivan Toney, despite his naughtiness. I
bet you do.
Yeah, I did like what's his name before he fell over the other day, and I just looked at that and tutted and thought that's ridiculous. And they were all at it. I think one of the Tottenham players took a dive as well, if I remember rightly. I can't remember.
Doherty.
It was, yeah. But and actually, which brings you on to someone I do like, which I know is one a player that you really recognise well, Gio, which is Jorgensen, who had got a little set too with Doherty, then, didn't he?
Zanka.
But I know he was very. I thought he's a nice guy, and he had his finger in his face, pushing him. And I was really pleased that Doherty, even though Jorgensen or Zanka had his finger on his face, that Doherty didn't go, and fall over. So I think Doherty took the point like a man, like a true man does, and didn't fall over, which I thought was nice. Yes, I like him. I like Toney. I quite like that De Silva, although he doesn't start as often as he probably should.
Yeah,
but what do I know? What do I know? Frank probably knows more than I do.
Doherty's made of the tough Irish stuff. That's why he didn't fall over. Maybe Declan Rice didn't switch to England. He would have stood up against Saka as well.
Quite right too.
I'll start with the keeper, Ray. I think he's superb. I think he's one of the best goalkeepers in the league, actually. I don't think he gets enough credit, really. I think strength. He's good at everything, all aspects of his game, distribution as well. I think he's up there with some of the best keepers in the Premier League. I think Ben Mee's been a fantastic signing for them, actually. Gone in there and really stabilised that defence. nice to see Aaron Hickey join Brentford. Sort of, he's holding his own a little bit. I was being impressed by what I've seen. He's not had loads of opportunities just yet, but he will be a top signing for Brentford for years to come. Norgard always impresses me in the middle of the pitch for Brentford. Whenever I watch him play, he's always busy, always getting involved. I think he's a good player. And obviously Ivan Toney, but the one player I've actually been disappointed with, if I was to write down my top 5 players I've been disappointed with this season out the whole Premier League, I'd probably include Damsgaard. I was very excited when he joined Brentford. I felt like a bit of a coup for them as well. Not seen enough of him. I mean, arguably, it's hard to put him in when Brentford are performing well. And when they play 3 at the back, it's sort of like, do they really have a position for him? So when they play 4-3-3, it's a bit easier. But he's somebody I was really looking forward to seeing. I still am. I think he'll still come good. But I've got that feeling with every Brentford signing they make. I think he'll do all right because of the way they go through the process of purchasing players. It's almost inevitable that signing will be a success. But anyway, shall we leave it there about Brentford?
Yeah, I think so, mate.
Right, before we move on to West Ham, this video is in collaboration with Betmate, your 6-a-side fantasy league, and you can get involved with the West Ham Brentford game and the West Ham Brentford game only. It costs £3 to enter, but don't worry, because if you use code HC10, you get £10 free credit. You can download the app by using the link in the description. Once you download it and you sign up to it, use the code HC10 and get your £10 free credit. You can enter the pot for this game, which is £3. There's 4 different pots, 4 different prices, but the top one is £3, and there's only 100 people able to enter. So be quick, and the top prize is 72 quid. So less people allowed to enter increases the chances of winning because they pay the top 20 places. And in the West Ham Arsenal game, Charlie won money.
He beat me and Geo. He actually won cash. He
had double your points tally in the Arsenal game. You got smashed.
Oh, well, you know.
I was comfortably ahead of you. I only just missed out on the money. I wasn't far off that prize bracket, but Charlie won cash. So, Gonzo, to redeem himself, this is your team for the West Ham Brentford game.
Yeah, I've dropped people basically for this one. Now it looks like I've got primarily West Ham players. You've actually got I do, but we also, when you do this, you have a bench. So on my bench, you got 6 of each basically, and so yeah, obviously I've picked a West Ham defense. I just think we're going to defend. I've gone for what I can. I think Toney will score. I think Bowen's got a good chance of scoring. He did actually win a penalty for all, for all the complaints about how West Ham played. He was one of our busier players. And I've got to put Paqueta in there, really, because I just think he has to come good because David Moyes is going to have to play him, really. And it's really, anyway, my bench is packed with Brentford players. I wasn't exactly sure how Brentford were going to play, but is it, how do you say that, Yanel, or is it Janet? All right, whoever it. Yanel actually scored against Tottenham, didn't he? So that secured his position in my team for this game.
Here's my team very quickly. I've got Ray on goal, Dawson for set pieces, Rico Henry on the left back spot for Brentford, Norgard because you get points for interceptions and tackles, so he'll be busy in there with Paqueta. And then I've also gone with Bowen and Toney because I liked what I saw from Jared Bowen and I like what I saw from Ivan Toney against Tottenham. So there you go. There's no budget. You pick any players you want, maximum of 6 per club. Link in description. Use code HC10. Get involved and see if you can beat myself and Gonzo. Well, actually, see if you can beat Charlie. He's the one that's best out of the 3 of us so far. As for West Ham, right then, team news. Scamacca should be okay, going by what David Moyes said after the Arsenal game. Aguero is a little bit more touch and go, though. He returned from the World Cup with a virus, and David Moyes said he lost a few kilograms in weight, so it's going to be a bit longer to get him up to scratch. However, he didn't rule him out, which makes me think maybe Moyes is perhaps bluffing a little bit, but for the sake of this preview, we're going to assume Aguero is okay to feature. Maxwell Cornet, probably not. He's probably not available for this one. We're not going to include him. And Kurt Zouma is obviously still absent following his surgery. But apart from that, David Moyes has got quite a big squad to choose from. But it doesn't really matter what David Moyes is going to do. This is what me and Gonzo want to see David Moyes doing. Gonzo, we're going to have to start with the goalkeeper here. Would you like to see a change after Fabianski's error at the Emirates?
I would, but I don't think we will. But I think it's actually imperative. So for reasons, I think this is David Moyes' last game if we lose. So let's. And I've thought it for some time, and just because I thought if we lose the Arsenal game, the next one he can't afford to lose. I think the 3 only counts if he gets the 3 games stay of execution only counts if he gets points in Arsenal and Brentford. I don't think he ever makes it to Leeds if you lose both, right? Because just don't. There's always the board have always leaked. This is historically 5 back-to-back Premier League defeats. A manager can't survive. That's a historical sort of quote from them. So I would expect that anyway. And to be fair, I don't think he should if he loses this one as well. So if he wants to keep his job, he's going to have to change things, and he's going to need to distribute quickly from the back. This is going to be really, really important. So he's going to have to use Areola because Areola offers something different. How are we going to change the way we play? Do I think we'll fundamentally change our formation? No, I don't. But can we, within the parameters of our formation, or what David Moyes likes to do, change the way we play? Basically, can we play quicker? Because my word, we were slow. And Areola will help us play more quickly.
Yeah, Areola for me is a bit ruthless, but football's a ruthless business. Fabianski made a glaring error, which led to Arsenal taking the league. It's a pivotal goal, and if an outfielder did an error of that magnitude, they'd get dropped. So I don't see why the keeper should get off with it. So Areola for me. What formation would you like? I assume you're going to stick with a back 4 for this one because I am as well. But I have to be honest with you. I feel we struggle with Brentford's attack. Last season they beat us twice. If I'm not wrong, I'm sure they played 4-3-3 in one of the games, but the other game was 3 at the back as they usually do. And the thought of Toney and Mbeumo just as a 2-prong attack against our centre-backs scares me a little bit. But we need to win, so I'd rather go on the offence.
What's he going to do? Well, he's got to go. As I say, you don't have to believe that he has a game left, but you've got to believe that I believe it. You know what I mean? So if I believe, what are you going to do? The defending hasn't worked. It doesn't work. It doesn't work. You're going to have to do something else. You're going to lose your job. It's as simple as that, really, as far as I see it. So you're right, but it doesn't matter because we've just done that. We've just done the defending. You've just done that. You want to stick Thomas Soucek in there. We saw numerous times. Thomas Soucek made 8 passes in that game. Is that right?
Yes, with his feet.
With his feet. Brilliant. 4 with his nose.
I like accuracy.
Yeah, absolutely. There were a number of times, particularly when Dawson moved out of position to try and win the ball higher up. What was happening was Soucek would drop into central defence. I can accurately remember 3 clearances. Who cleared that? Was it Dawson? Oh, no, it was Soucek. Where he was literally stood in Dawson's position. That's his job. All right, that's his job. Don't bother. It ain't working. It's not yielding us any points. We keep losing. That's been his job for quite some time now. To change that. So yeah, that I would keep the formation, Geo, but I would completely change the intent of the team and the personnel within it.
Well, let's talk about the personnel in your defence. Who would you like to see?
Well, I will pick Soucek, but only because he stood up and fancied it against Arsenal. Basically, he wanted to fight them. He was one of the few that took offence to Arsenal picking on us. So I would play him. Otherwise, I wouldn't. To be fair, not for over quality. I probably would. I would do something so drastic if I thought I wanted to change it. I'd probably put Harrison Ashby there, but I won't because I thought Soucek deserves it after the display against Arsenal. I'll play Dawson next. Dawson played well against Arsenal. And as for I'd play a Gerd. I would not play Kehrer. A couple of kilos come around my house. Send it around my house for half a day. You'll put those kilos back on. You should see the state of me, honestly. So hopefully, probably the only person that's lost weight in the last week in the whole country. And I will I will play Cresswell at left back, but I would close to playing Johnson there. I am close, but I would.
Yeah, I'm the same as you, and you can sense the hesitancy from yourself when you're naming these players, and I'm a bit like that as well. Like, oh, go on then, oh, go on then. Dawson as well. I think we played okay against Arsenal, but the way we played suited Dawson, which is sit inside the 18-yarder. I think when we were playing 20 yards further up the pitch, and he's up against flipping Ivan Toney, it terrifies me, but. Who terrifies me less, Dawson or Carver? Well, at this point, it's probably Craig Dawson, so that's why I'd go with him. Moving into midfield, then, what would you like to see done?
Downs and Rice in central midfield.
And who give us the rest of your team then?
Okay, Bowen on the right, Antonio on the left, Benrahma in the number 10 position, and Scamacca up front.
Antonio on the left?
Yeah, absolutely.
But why would you move Benrahma out of the left wing when he's been performing relatively well there? I don't.
Because I need to get some pace in the team. I can't really think of anywhere else to put. Well, number one, Cornet is not available. Well, we're slow. I mean, we're so slow. I was actually watching that game against Arsenal. I was wondering what David Moyes thinks when he sees a fast player. I'm not sure what he thinks. When he's just seeing, and it's been going on years now. When he sees other players run past ours, just think that it's not an attribute. It's not like dribbling or heading or tackling. It's just not a bona fide attribute on a football pitch. I find it weird. And I was listening to that interview the other day when Arteta was saying, "Oh yeah, David Moyes asked me to play on the wing." Yeah, of course he bloody did. You know what I mean? He's like an old tanker as well in terms of his speed. So yeah, I need to get some pace into the team if we're going to transition and we're going to counter attack quickly. And I want pace on both flanks, and it's the only way I can think to do it. And for this game with the pace, I'm sorry, Paqueta is just too slow for the way we need to play in this one. Which I'm saying, Areola gets that ball, bang, and we're going straight up that pitch. Basically, he needs to sort of get close to how the Moyes team almost used to play when he first arrived. 3 or 4. I want to 2-3 passes, 2 or 3 moves. I want to be in their box. That's it. All the rest of it's just not going to work. And so for that reason, that's why I would do it.
Well, I've got Declan Rice in defensive midfield. Just old school Declan Rice, what we saw before we changed his role up, kind of thing. I guess it's slightly messaging to Declan Rice as well, which is you're not been good enough recently. Your captaincy hasn't been good enough recently. We needed something from him. I'd play Fornals and Paqueta alongside him. Go 4-3-3. Brentford usually play 3 across the middle, regardless of what formation they're going to play, whether they play 3 at the back or 4 at the back. They have 3 centre midfielders in there that are going to work hard, and I don't want to get outnumbered or out-battled in there. So put Fornals in there. And I think he probably deserves a crack in the sense that the people that have replaced him over the last few games, going back to pre-World Cup as well, haven't done it. And I'm aware I'm including Paqueta in here, despite him not doing it. But he's got to buck up his ideas. We can't afford to just have a 35, 50 million, depending on how you want to look at the deal. Can't afford to have somebody like that just sat on the bench doing nothing. We need to get the best out of him. And putting him alongside Fornals and Rice, this should be good enough to create something. And my front 3 is predictable. Bowen, Scamacca, Benrahma. I would like to keep Benrahma on the left. I think he's been performing well out there. For that reason, I would just leave him on the left kind of thing. I think you take him in field into number 10, it becomes a bit congested. And I've quite enjoyed him going one-on-one with right backs and teeing up right backs and trying to go down the outside or cut inside and shoot. And I just worry that in the middle, he's up against 2 players in there and he struggles to have an immediate opponent. That would be my worry with that one. It's quite a big game.
I think it's huge. It's huge.
For Moyes, this isn't season defining for us or Brentford, but for Moyes,
it really is. It really is. And I'll be amazed if he knows it is. I'll be amazed if he knows it is.
I don't think he'll get sacked.
Okay. Even if I know. I'm probably in the minority there.
No, I've seen plenty of people. I think it's split. I think it's quite split actually. As to
people think he'll go, do they? Yeah. I can't see any way because people will turn on the own. Well, I will turn on the ownership, to be perfectly honest with you. Your gaze will start to move from Moyes, because I think if what we see in this game, I'll play out a scenario here. If what we see in this game is he does do not what we've both done something different, if he does the same and we defend and we still lose, I'll be looking and think, well, he can't help himself. He can't help himself. Yeah, but I'm looking at the board thinking, well, you need to change this because he can't. He cannot. He literally, he's like some of his fingers. He's going la 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 la, not listening. That's what he's like. And I think I'll look at the board and well, you should have acted weeks ago. How much more evidence do you need? Because it's almost like they would keep moving the goalposts. Oh, what, you're going to give him the Leeds game, are you? And I will, and I think they will come under heavy criticism of the board, and they would deserve to for their the irony of the Dithering Dave, and yet they would lack any sort of decisive. Not just planning, but just any decision making that was needed. I think that the focus would correctly turn to them.
Yeah, I think it's massive for Moyes in the sense of it's a home game now. It's a lot easier to voice your displeasure of the manager at a home game than it is an away game. Sure. I think if we were to go 1-0 down and it gets to half time, I think the boos would be very, very loud and very evident. And what it does do is it triggers discussions. And whether we like it or not, mainstream media almost dictates clubs making decisions sometimes. I don't necessarily agree with that, but if the back pages come the 31st, it's just full of Moyes and the West Ham fans booing Moyes and stuff, it puts pressure on the boardroom a little bit, which is what you're saying. They're going to pick up the paper and go, bloody hell, the fans aren't happy. And when Martin Noble makes the comment, oh, that's social media a lot. Well, it's not anymore, is it? It's 60,000 people in the stadium as well. You can't ignore that. So you can. I think it's easy to dismiss it as a social media group or whatever it was that Martin Noble said, and I think it's very naive actually. And this goes back to when the Burnley protests happened years ago, and stories came out about how surprised David Gold was at what was happening. As if, where's this come from? As if how has no one warned you that this was on the horizon? And I think that would be the same here. The crowd were booing, and Martin Noble sat there going, bloody hell, why is the fans unhappy? Hang on a minute. There's no one. How have you not picked up that it's not a social media thing? That it's larger than that, really. And I think this is a massive, massive game from David Moyes, because even if I don't believe he's going to get sacked, what is guaranteed is it increases the pressure on David Moyes. That's if we don't win this game, minimum is the pressure is ramped right up, and the board start getting questions from their trusted sources. Hi, Mr. Sullivan, what are you going to do, Moyes? People want to know, is he going? Is he what's happening? And I think that becomes a very, very difficult position for all involved.
That, by the way, that is happening already.
Yes, I know that, but it gets more and more after the game. Do you know the next question?
Oh, am I confident? That one, that's a nice one. I like that one. My favourite. No. I'm really not. I thought they really took it to Tottenham. It's very effective the way they play. I think their game management is good. Look, I mean, Conte might disagree because he was able to come back at them. But they've got some really good players, Tottenham. So they can come back at anyone. I think half of that is what worries me is what happened in that Tottenham game was that. That Tottenham came back at them once Tottenham decided to attack. Conte does this quite a lot, actually. He'll sit back, and that's his... But actually, when Tottenham did sit back, I thought Brentford took them apart.
Yeah.
So I don't think they'll do what you want to do. I don't think they'll do what I want to do. I think David Moyes will sit back, and I think Brentford may well tear us apart. And the difference is, as we saw against Arsenal, we can't flick the switch. So we can't turn around and say, bang, right, okay, now we'll attack. We can't do what Tottenham did there. We just don't have the players to do it. And even then, to be fair, possibly Tottenham should have won 3-2 in that game, and we just don't have the ability to do that. So, it's very, very hard to take any confidence. Again, to take confidence, you have to ignore the evidence, you have to ignore past games, and you have to invent a scenario. You have to imagine something rather than take something that's actually happened. So for us to say it's hard to be confident when you've got to imagine something and discard and ignore. We end up going, no. We end up the ones doing that. To think that we'll win, I would imagine Brentford will do well.
I've got some evidence which gives me a little bit of optimism, but I can very quickly bat away my optimism by looking at other parts of the evidence. This Brentford play against us on Thursday, then they play a game on Monday. They play again on the 2nd, we play on the 4th. So they're probably going to have to rotate 1 or 2 players. I'm not sure the likes of Ben Mee can play 3 games in 7 days for Brentford. So Frank's got a little bit of squad rotation to do, possibly, because their next game is against Liverpool at home as well. And while you might think, well, surely you get the points against West Ham, the record against the top 6 is incredibly good. I think they've played 5 of the top 6 and they've only lost 1. The other evidence for optimism is that when I've seen them play away from home this season, I've not been that impressed. Man City apart, obviously the one at the Etihad, but Man City apart, I haven't been that impressed by them on the road. And they've won the same amount of games as us. Brentford and West Ham have won the same amount of games in the Premier League this season, 4. The difference is we've lost 10 and they've lost 4. So that's where their extra 6 points have come from. So you can look at it in 2 ways. A, Brentford struggled to break teams down, or B, Brentford are very hard to beat. I think both are true going into this one. I think both remain true. The things that bat away any optimism I'm trying to garner here a little bit is the fact that West Ham scored 13 goals in the league this season. Ivan Toney scored 11 himself. Do you know what I mean?
Well, there's a man who backs himself.
262 times as well. But this is, if it wasn't Brentford, if you're looking at a club, if you're looking at a team with this form, with this, even this league position, this is the type of game Moyes usually wins at West Ham. But obviously, you add in Brentford, you have to dismiss that because they beat us both times last season. But in terms of a team that finishes mid-table, this is where Moyes has been picking up points for West Ham. Because away to Arsenal, the 70th game away to the likes of Liverpool, Chelsea, Man United and Arsenal, where we haven't won a game. Well, that record stood when we finished 6th and 7th in the Premier League, which means that you're picking your points up somewhere. And it's usually games like this, not against Brentford, but likes of Crystal Palace and that. But saying that, Gonzo, I can't be confident. I'm a bit more optimistic than I was against Arsenal because my optimism and confidence was a flat 0 for that one, and I have a little bit of optimism for this one, but it's based on hope more than anything.
Sure.
Can I get any final words from yourself in your score prediction, which I'm quite looking forward to, even if I'm honest with you?
Yeah, I mean, the trouble is I'm trying to sort of temper it because I think we can win this game. We can.
Yeah, of course we can.
No
we've got
wins
good players
this season. We've won, won some games in Europe, and as you say, we've won 4 games elsewhere in the Premier League. So it's not that we can't, but
you've got to believe that Moyes is going to do something, which is going to win us the game.
It's not just that. I thought the lack of fight, as you know, Geo, we discussed it in depth in the player ratings on Patreon. I already uploaded a video about us not fighting and not, basically getting bullied. That is a major concern. That's a major concern because before it was just running stats. Our running stats were down. That's what people were saying. Our running, all the rest of it. Now we're shrinking. We're shrinking. And I would never, ever, if you'd started this season, who were the biggest bully boys in the league, I would not have said Arsenal were it. Now, I might change my mind on that now because how feisty he's got them playing. But I watched Brentford, and Brentford know the dark arts of football. They really, really do. And I am terrified. I actually put on one of my thumbnails, petrified or terrified or something like that. And what I meant was our players and our staff are terrified and petrified and scared of Arsenal. I'm petrified by what I saw of our lack of being able to puff our chest out and stick up for ourselves, and just for someone, a teammate, to stand next to his teammate and say, "Oh, you don't do that to my mate. Don't you dare. Don't you dare put your hands on him." Do you know what I mean? Something like that. And I saw no fight in there. And that's what worries me. And it's that as much as the tactics, as much as anything else, that I worry that David Moyes is not going to be able to instill in them. Because I've got to say, if I was in charge of that team, if I was in that dressing room, if I was even a player in that team, I'd be screaming about that. I'd be screaming about it, because you cannot. It's the very, very basics. It's like tying on your boots. It's the very basics. If you can't go out there and if you can't fight and if you can't battle and it's a team sport. And I saw a load of people out there looking after themselves. And if we go out there and we do that, then we just don't stand a chance, not just against Arsenal, not just against Brentford, but almost against anyone. Because I look at the Premier League now and it looks quite motivated and skillful, actually. Even the team, got Fulham, and there's some decent teams out there you wouldn't normally think. And there's a lot of better teams than West Ham out there. My scoreline, unless we drastically change tactically and in our attitude, which is what I was just saying, and compete and realise that we're in a fight, then I think Brentford will beat us. I think Brentford will beat us 2-1.
I'm going to say 1-1. I'm basing this on gut feeling. I've just got a feeling. And I think that's a dangerous result. Because I'm not sure losing is enough to get Moyes sacked anyway. But drawing, I feel even more confident in saying I think Moyes will still be here for the Leeds game if we draw. And I think it's not enough to get him sacked, but it's not enough to really help us get up the table or anything. I think a draw is a dangerous result for us against Brentford. And I've just got a gut feeling it'll finish 1-1. I think Brentford are a good team, but they're going to have to rotate a few players. And I think we've got good players. We do have good players. We are capable of winning this game. But like I said, in order to do so, we need changes. And the very first question is, will Soucek start? And if your answer is yes, then you almost have to concede the fact that there's not any changes, or the changes are very, very minimal, or they're incorrect. The number one change that needs to be done hasn't been taken. And your confidence just disappears altogether, really. So, yeah, 1-1. If you enjoyed this preview, though, somehow, please do drop a like on the video. It helps the channel out. Subscribe if you're to Hamish Chat. Myself and Gonzo will catch up with you on the build-up show, which will be an hour and 5 minutes, so 6:40 on Friday night. We'll be live taking a look at the West Ham team, the Brentford team, and how we think the game will go off the back of that. And also, you get a sneak peek at Charlie's Betmate team, which won a bit of cash last time. Catch you in a bit.